Big risk I'm taking today. I'm talking about a potentially good game instead of a potentially bad game, like the Veilguard or Avowed or something. And in this case, I'm talking about Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. This is certainly one I've had my eye on. It's one of the few games that's coming out where I'm just pretty damn confident that it's going to be really good. Like, the chances of this sucking, totally flopping, and being like a Starfield situation or something where you're kind of excited and then it's a big letdown, I don't think it's going to happen. I think the studio Warhorse, going from the first Kingdom Come Deliverance, which almost didn't happen. Like, it relied on crowdfunding. None of the publishers wanted it. They made it happen. It came out, and it's just a game that has that old school influence. It also always felt like there was potential for more, like they were just getting started with Deliverance 1, and that's what Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 seems to be. It's basically more of the same. It's just going to be sort of grander, bigger budget, and that's good enough. It doesn't need to reinvent the wheel. Just more of a good thing, and hopefully just refine it a bit, improve some of the weaknesses of the first one. So I think it's going to be really good, and that's really why I haven't talked about it so much. Like, the reason I haven't done, like, every time there's more news about Kingdom Come 2, rushed out and analysed some news, talked about a new trailer or something for a genuinely good upcoming game, I just don't want to spoil it for myself. Like, if I keep talking about it, looking into it, then when it comes out, maybe it will be a letdown because I've hyped myself up too much. I'd prefer just to quietly stay excited, play it when it comes out, but I don't mind talking about big developments that aren't spoilers. And that's what's happened today, where, in a big surprise, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 hasn't been delayed, it's actually been brought forward. We're getting it sooner than we expected. And I had to do like a double take when I saw this. I originally saw somewhere it's coming out February 4th, and then I thought, hang on, was that the release date? I thought it was a bit later, and then I realized, hang on, they have actually brought this forward, which is just, I wouldn't say unprecedented. I remember a couple of times this has happened, maybe even last year or something, but like, it's just really good news, I would say, because the chances of this coming out and being like a Stalker 2, like a buggy mess where there's a whole heap of problems, and yet they have pushed the release date forward, doesn't seem like that's likely. It seems like they're confident in the game. They've said it's gone gold, which means it's completed. I mean, I don't pay a lot of attention to that because any studio can say that, but is it actually ready? I think this is like putting your money where your mouth is. Like, you've got that extra time, but you're saying you don't need it. So you're releasing it a bit sooner. I'm sure also other games coming out have a factor in this, and we'll talk about that in a second, but it's pretty cool. You certainly don't have to take my word for it, my analysis with no game dev experience. You can instead take Chris Aballone's analysis. He's worked on a ton of games, he's got that respect, he's shipped actual good games, not some of the crap that we get these days. And he says, by the way, a game studio moving up a release is ballsy. Almost never happens. Warhorse strong. So he seems to be pretty excited for the game. Makes sense. I don't think he'll be purchasing Avowed based on some of his comments about Obsidian recently. But if we also have a look at this, I was sort of checking out upcoming wish-listed games on Steam, checking some of these sales numbers and so on, because I really want Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 to succeed. If it's as good as it's kind of looking, if it does deliver, stick the landing, then I hope it does really, really well. We've had, obviously, Baldur's Gate 3 do well last year. That's probably kickstarted. We haven't even seen it yet, but I guarantee you there's been a ton of games green-lit from different publishers, studios, off the back of Baldur's Gate 3's success that we will eventually get. So more of these games succeeding. If it leads to more good games coming out, that'll be a good thing. And I'm talking about new, fresh developers who actually have talent. I'm not talking about EA greenlighting another BioWare game. We can live without that. But if we look here, Deliverance 2 is at 17 on most wishlisted, but we can actually also see it's 242 in the top sellers. Now, I was talking about sort of Steam charts, sales figures for upcoming games, about Avowed pretty recently, and I mentioned that Avowed was really, really low down the list. Like, it was at 1,600 in top sellers just the other day. Now, you can say the game hasn't come out yet, it's coming out in 2 months, who cares about those figures? But I think it's interesting if you can do that comparison, if we can compare games coming out in February, how are they sort of competing with each other? Well, Avowed now, it's doing a bit better. Some people pointed out in the comments the other day that there was the big Steam sale on, and I totally forgot about that. But Steam sale aside, like, the game's still not doing well. That Steam sale is over, and Avowed is still only at 1,126. Can't even break the top 1,000. I think that art directory, he might have done some damage. No one's buying this game. And the thing is, that number by itself, 1,100 or so on Steam, doesn't really mean anything, given, again, it hasn't come out yet. But we can directly compare. So Avowed's coming out in February. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, it's coming out February 4th now, so a little bit earlier, but pretty similar. It's at 242. That's a massive difference, and sure, Kingdom Come, it's part of a franchise, but Avowed still has, like, the supposed pedigree of Obsidian, which I think is a bit shaky these days. A lot of people who will just buy every Obsidian game, they're just lifelong fans. But it is also connected to Pillars of Eternity, so it's not a brand new IP, really. Like, it's a spin-off, if anything. Like, that just seems abysmally low to me. Like, I don't understand how you can look at that and not question that this game isn't going to do well when it comes out. Like, the Veilguard, for instance, was doing way better than this, and I thought it looked even worse. And that's not the only comparison. Like, Monster Hunter Wilds, for instance, it's at number 60, which is massive given how far it is from release. Like, that's going to do massive juggernaut numbers in terms of sales. Probably even more than Monster Hunter World, which was already pretty big. Like, this will probably be even bigger, I would say. Sid Meier's Civilization 7, that's like another one, long-standing franchise, good one to compare to. That's at number 215. So, fairly comparable with Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, which is at 242. So you can kind of get a feel for the games that are probably going to be successes. Like, you know, Civilization 7's not going to flop or anything. Like, it's probably going to do all right. The same is looking true for Deliverance 2, which I think is a good thing. And a game that looks way more questionable in Avowed doesn't seem like it's going to be doing so well. So, from the way I see it, like, the good games are succeeding, the questionable ones aren't, which I think is great. Like, in the old days, it just felt like a lot of genuinely bad games, the marketing would push through, and the normies would still buy it, even if it was just abysmal, and people were trying to say, don't buy it, don't be sucked in, but it would still do well. That doesn't seem to happen as much anymore. The publishers probably have a few more tricks up their sleeve. They're not just going to suddenly make good games, realize making good products is the recipe for success. That's their last resort, but maybe it will result in some good news going forward. So Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, it's coming out in pretty much bang on 2 months' time, and I'm not sure I'll talk about it a lot after this, at least until the game's about to come out, just because, again, I don't want to spoil it for myself, but I'm quietly pumped for it. Like, it's my most anticipated game, probably of the whole year next year, and it's releasing in about 60 days, so that's sounding like it's going to be really good. There is the system specs. They're coming pretty soon, PC specs, and I've got to say, hopefully they're fine for this particular game, but I'm getting the sense these days, like, PC games are so badly optimized a lot of the time, and looking at the Indiana Jones ones, I think they came out today or something, not particularly interested in, like, racing out to buy that game, maybe down the track when there's a sale or something. I don't care that much. I actually thought that Wolfenstein 2, The New Colossus, was garbage. It was one of the worst FPS I've ever played. Not just, like, the weird story and, like, that whole thing was, it's just a joke. Like, if that came out today, like, the controversy around it, I think, would be similar to the Veilguard and what's going on with the Vow. Back then, there probably wasn't as much discussion, but it's bad if you go back and play it. So for that reason, I'm less excited about Indiana Jones, because it is that team's next game. We'll see, maybe it's all right, but on the PC spec side of things, like, the recommended specs, I'm pretty sure it's for, like, 1080. I'm not sure if it's higher than that, but 1080p, I'm pretty sure you needed to have an RTX 3080 Ti. And that's what I have, but, like, it doesn't feel that old. Like, there's one series of cards that have come out after that. So it almost feels like you have to have, like, the latest graphics card to be able to play games on like just like decent settings, which I don't feel like it was always like that. I think it's just another example of just lazy PC optimization. Whether that'll be the case for Kingdom Come, we'll see. I do think that Kingdom Come Deliverance is going to be a much more ambitious game, so maybe that'll mean the PC specs are kind of high, but I trust that they're going to work on it. I mean, they're making the game for Europeans. They're European, and from what I hear, a lot of people in Europe, they don't upgrade their PCs as much as, like, Americans, for instance. So it's got to work well on the BOM computers. Hopefully they're thinking about that as well. I'm just going to talk about something else. Doesn't really warrant its own video. So if you don't want to hear about Dishonored, something about Dishonored, feel free to tune out. But I thought this was quite interesting. There was a brand new interview with Raphael Colantonio, if I'm pronouncing that right, and he was one of the founders of Arcane, the studio behind the Dishonored games, Prey as well. I'm pretty sure he directed Prey, and that was like one of my most unexpected, like, best games ever. Like, I didn't really know what that was going to be, and it was amazing. Like, if you've only played, say, for immersive sims, Dishonored, Bioshock, for instance, like, I think it was way better than Bioshock. It reminded me more of System Shock 2, which is an older game in that sort of design, very similar to that. It was really, really cool. And then they just totally destroyed that studio, and they were making Redfall. I'm pretty sure Bethesda put them up to it and forced them to go in the live service Redfall direction. The whole thing's just like a total mess. It didn't even end up being a live service. Like, what a joke. But this guy, he left Arcane. He's been making his own games. He made something called Weird West, which just, it didn't really vibe for me. Like, I was hoping he was going to make one of these immersive sim type games. Instead, it was, as it says here, a top-down action RPG. So I just never bothered with it. Maybe it's actually good, and I was just judging the fact that it looked different to most immersive sims. Maybe I'll check it out later. But what intrigued me is he's talking in this interview about their upcoming game, their new game. He actually says that Weird West did pretty well, and it's allowed them to staff up and make a game that's probably more similar to what fans of his previous games like. Like, if you enjoy Deus Ex, again, Dishonored, Bioshocky sort of games as well, then it sounds like his upcoming game is going to be for us. He mentions people who loved Dishonored and Prey are going to feel very at home with our next game. It's uncompromised. We are just going full on into that kind of game. Again, immersive sim, that's what he's talking about. The way we create the worlds, the way we let choices to the player, and I think there are going to be even more choices this time because of the RPG layer. We'll have a lot of different ways to do things. Sounds like a natural fit given the team's expertise. If this new title is the perfect project, that's what Raphael says. Like, he actually admits that Weird West wasn't even really the game they were desperate to make, like their biggest passion. They just thought they had to make a smaller scale game first. And then apparently that game took way longer than he expected, but they had to get it done. He again mentioned that it did pretty well, so they've been able to staff up and make a bigger game. So this is actually the dream game he's trying to make. And you know what? If it's anything like Dishonored or Prey, I'm happy with that. Like, Dishonored at the time, I probably almost underappreciated it. Like, it was good, but I didn't think of it as, like, the best game ever. If a game came out of that similar quality, like, today, I would be rushing out to buy it. Like, that would be the greatest thing that I'd hope for. It's almost that you want what you can't have. Like, once it's gone, you wish you could have it, that sort of thing. Like, that's how I feel about Dishonored, Prey, all these sorts of games. We haven't had one for ages. None of the AAA studios will touch any of these with a 10-foot pole because they don't seem to sell that well. He talks about it in this interview. It's a marketing problem. It's hard to do, but he also admitted that Baldur's Gate 3, because it was a game about choice and the way you approach things, not just like making RPG-style choices, decision-making in quests, but like everything. Like, there's always little options for every little thing, the way that you play in that game. That was the big selling point. Maybe some of that could come across into the marketing for this upcoming immersive sim, and it could help it do really well. It's sounding good. Dream game, as he says, again, sounds like he's not compromising, he's not dumbing it down. Hopefully it comes out in the next few years. And when you've got games like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, something like this as well, maybe we'll get some winners alongside the Avoweds and the Dragon Age, the Veil Guards, and so on. It's good to have that balance, but I'll leave it there. Thanks for listening. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.